All right, it's Tuesday, January 2nd. It's the Brainerd Personnel Finance Committee meeting. We're in the second floor in the conference room. I'll call this meeting to order and we'll start with introductions.
Kara Terry, Ward 1.
Patrick Wasson, City Administrator.
Connie Hillman, City Finance Director.
Kevin Stulik, Alderman at Large.
Chris Schubert, HR Director.
Danny Locke, BPU Finance Manager.
Dolly Madden, Commissioner, BPU.
Mark O'Day, BPU Commissioner.
Teresa Burke, Brainerd Dispatch.
Dave Johnson, Chair of the Committee. We have 8 quick items on the agenda tonight. First of which is to consider an approval of a revised employee policy manual. Chris.
Good evening. Attached to the council packet was some lengthy documents regarding our updated employee policy manual. The primary changes to the employee policy manual are based on our employment laws review, employment law attorneys review, and necessary updates to comply with the 2023 legislative law changes, and also to incorporate some policy changes that the council enacted this past year. Just to let you know, there is a separate earned, safe, and sick time policy that will be considered as a separate agenda item. And once that is approved, it will be inserted into our final version of the employee policy manual. We also share this information with all of our staff and ask them to sign the acknowledgement once it is finalized. The recommended action is a motion to approve the updated employee policy manual as presented.
I so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Number 2, discuss BPU Commission's recommendations for a work group formation. Pat.
So included in your packet is information related to what was presented at the last BPU Commission meeting, and it is titled as Draft Responsibilities and Authority related to operation of BPUC as defined in Chapter 6 of the City Charter. Additionally, I provided minutes, first of all, Chapter 6 of the Charter, and then City Council minutes back from June 27, 2022, when the Council reviewed with the BPU Commission their role after the Charter change. It seems it's a little bit different than when the Council set this meeting up in early November. We were going to be discussing street projects and utilities and the timelines and lines of communication. Now it seems to have added a little nuance, so I want to make council aware of that. I'd be willing to answer any questions.
Thanks for the heads up. I've got time to review it. Our meeting is January 22nd. Do you have any questions off the start, or just, I'll save mine for January 22nd when we're meeting on it.
Okay.
Thanks for the update.
No action.
No action.
No.
Okay, next up is to ratify the hiring of Haley Blank. Chris.
We received 17 applications for the recreation specialist position and 8 candidates were interviewed. Staff offered the position to Haley Blank, who will be starting with us on January 17th on step 2 of the 2023 rec specialist wage grid, or $30.56 per hour. The recommended motion is to ratify the hiring of Haley Blank effective January 17th, 2024. Further, that she be placed on step 2 of the rec specialist wage grid.
I so move.
Second.
It's good to have somebody in place there. Any other discussion?
No.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Consider approval classification points as recommended by Latter-day Hood. Chris.
So as required by state law, the city of Brainerd must assign pay equity points for our job classifications. In October of 2022, the city hired Flaherty and Hood to help us review our points and to complete a market study to get us back into pay equity compliance. We have now officially completed the points appeals process. Therefore, the final points are being presented to the City Council for review and consideration. The recommended action is a motion to approve the final pay equity points for each job classification as presented.
I so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I just have a question. This puts us in compliance now?
What this does is it helps us with our points
Okay.
as far as pay equity.
Okay, so
We
not
will
quite yet.
actually have a recommendation at your next meeting to
Okay.
help with the wage portion of that.
Okay. I'm good.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Next up is approval of the ESST policy. Chris.
During the 2023 Minnesota legislative session, a new law was passed implementing the earned sick and safe time leave. It's also called ESST. ESST will now require that all employees that work a minimum of 80 hours in a year start to accrue 1 hour of ESST time for every 30 hours worked effective January 1st of 2024. Per state of Minnesota guidelines, all employers are required to have a policy in place, and attached is our draft ESST policy for council review and consideration. A side note, we have sent out an email, I believe, to the BPU Commission. Not only is this regarding employees, but appointed boards also need to keep track of their time. I believe you should receive that today. Recommended action is a motion to approve the earned sick and safe time policy as presented.
I so move.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, that motion carries. Next up, accept with regret the retirement of Public Utilities Director Todd Whitcliffe. Chris?
I'll start this. So on December 26th, Public Utilities Director Todd Whitcliffe submitted his retirement letter. His retirement will be effective May 3rd, 2024. Staff is recommending to accept his retirement with regret and to authorize his severance pay per city policy. From there, maybe Mr. Russo can take over the other recommendations.
Sure. Just a little bit more history is that back in August, Todd notified the BPU Commission that he was of his pending retirement, so it wasn't a surprise on the 26th that we finally got it, because I needed confirmation before we set up the timelines as proposed in the packet for council. So we've been talking about different alternatives, even when I was on the chair of the board, and talking with then Administrator Bergman, but the last couple of months we've been looking into it more thoroughly. And what I proposed is you can leave the title the same, you can modify it to what I'm proposing as Assistant City Administrator, or you can do a modification somewhere in between the two of them. I do want to talk about wages after that, but the title of it doesn't change the wages type situation. So but I would be willing to talk about it more in question. Under the charter that I provided at the last item, it identifies that the city council determines the terms and conditions of employment. So in that, the terms and conditions are that their job description. And the job description says that this position reports to the city administrator. And the city council, that was part of that 2022 discussion that we had when the board changed, or when the council changed the charter. So I'd be willing to answer any questions on that part of it, then I'd like to talk about wages after that. And I would point out that Todd's not in favor of this title change.
Okay. Let's accept with regret, get that out of the way, and then
Yep, I
talk
agree.
through any-
Separate items. I make a motion to do that.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion second to accept with regret the retirement of Public Utilities Director Todd Whitcliffe effective May 3rd, 2024, and authorize his severance payout per the employee policy manual. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, that motion carried. So then that brings us up to the replacement of a job title and job description. So I've read through the packet, and I'm in favor of the Assistant City Administrator dash Public Utility title. To signify it's a public utility, but that they are an assistant, they report to the city administrator, not to nobody on earth. Because I think we've had some confusion along the lines of who people report to over in that department. So I like the Assistant City Administrator position.
So then, when we advertise for this position, we'll advertise for to have education for the assistant administrative position, education with that?
What you see in the proposed job description is what I'm proposing it, with the job description with that related title.
Okay. Okay.
So it'd still have all of the public utilities. but-
Correct.
Yeah, Mark, go ahead.
I have, back when we met on March 10th of 2023 as a work group, which consisted of Dolly and I, and Kara, Jennifer Bergman, and HR Director Chris Schubert and her assistant. And at that time, following Flaherty and Hood's recommendation, the recommendation from Flaherty and Hood and this work group was to call it Public Utilities Director. So we don't understand, Assistant City Administrator doesn't make sense, but to me at least, so we're not in favor of the change. we think Public Utilities Director describes the job. And then we also, we have more to say when we get to the job description.
Okay,
I agree with Mr. O'Day on this. Assistant City Administrator seems bigger to me than, I would see it as having significantly more responsibility than just BPU, although BPU is an extremely big responsibility, don't get me wrong. I think it might cause some confusion.
I always come across as, we create work groups and stuff for a reason, and if we don't listen to the recommendations of the work groups, then why do we create the work group? So I guess I would agree with Mr. O'Day and Kara. If we don't listen to our work groups and our people that we put together to research this and what's it.
well, and this work group did their job and we listened to them, and when we did the reorganization, that was the title we created.
Yeah.
And perhaps it wasn't absolutely perfect and never needs to be changed ever again, perhaps it could be improved. So I'm kind of, that's where I'm leaning towards, perhaps we could improve it, and now is an opportunity to do so.
Well,
But if you have a well, Mark?
I'm sorry, I think once you get into this job description and we talk about some of the things within the job description, I mean, if you believe that the Public Utilities Director reports to Patrick on operational issues, then we have a big disagreement there also. So, because when this whole thing started with the personnel, and I had a long discussion with Jennifer back in the day that this was only that we needed a top person for all personnel in the city, and that was gonna be the city administrator. For personnel issues, for firing, hiring, and all of those sorts of things, not operations of the BPU, which he has in Todd's new job description, which, I mean, Todd also has done one, which makes a lot more sense. It's correct, it goes by what the chapter 6 of the charter says, this one doesn't, so we have an issue with that also.
See, I contend that they're incorrect in their interpretation of the charter. Our city attorney drafted that section with the specific intent that all staff would report to the city administrator. And that's what the current job description that the committee created back in March also stated.
Yeah, and that's how I understood it, and that's how I understood the changes at the time. I know people don't like it. I'm aware that people are upset with the change, but that was how the change was made. And when we have an issue like a tainted water supply, and the city administrator asks a department head or a department manager to give us a recap of what happened and what we changed to fix it, and the city administrator asks that and gets told to pound sand, that they don't answer to the city administrator, and the people of the city don't get an answer, perhaps there's a problem, and perhaps we do need to restructure and change something a little bit, because no answers have been provided on the water situation this last year, and nobody's working on finding those answers, because they don't think they have to.
Well, I think in that case, then, you know, as, you know, if we have things that we would ask Kelly to have those things, figured out by you guys, we would ask, I didn't even know this. So
Because it's a personnel matter, and we told the city administrator brought it down the chain did not respond to the city administrator, so perhaps changing the job description.
Or someone needs to ask the BPU commission,
Yeah, maybe.
so that we can address it.
So if we have
Where's
two,
Boss? I mean, if that didn't happen,
yeah, okay, so if we have two in favor of that, make that motion right now, that's what we'll bring upstairs, but I'll still argue for the revised job
So
description.
is this something we have to decide right this second, or can we tweak some of the language to make it fit everybody, or not? Just asking.
You can tweak it but it would need approval before we advertise, and so that would push it, the earliest advertising would go up then on the 17th versus what we've got here.
when is the meeting between us? and the commission?
22nd.
And when is your next?
The 16th. And then the city council won't meet again
Sure,
until.
it'd be nice to have that before your next council meeting.
So, I'm not understanding or tracking, so the BPU commissioner reports to city administrator. and
No.
Hold it, no, you just said the wrong title, that's why I just want to clarify.
The Public Utilities.
I'm sorry,
Director.
yes. reports to you.
The city
City
administrator.
administrator,
That was
yes.
in the job description back in March, yes.
So if we're not getting a response from the, what's the title?
Public
The
Utilities
Public
Director.
Utilities Directors, thank you. Isn't that a personnel issue?
Right.
And so then city administrator would hold that person accountable regardless of what the commission said.
Yeah, the commission, I'm not concerned about the commission.
I'm just trying to understand, if that's the reporting structure, then we should be able to hold them accountable to get the information that we're requesting.
We should, but
But we
because of the gray area, the confusion on who's in charge, the commission or the city administrator, the answer is the city administrator.
Okay, I just want to be clear.
And people are confused about that.
Okay, I just want
That's
to be
your
clear that
opinion.
I understood it.
That's what the city charter is.
That's what my understanding is.
I don't think so, operational.
Mark,
it doesn't
please.
say that, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Chris?
Just to refresh your memory, also we have attached the Flaherty and Hood recommendation. And the Flaherty and Hood recommendation was to replace the superintendent with the public utilities director. In the first bullet was the job classification would be directly supervised by the city administrator with oversight and guidance from the BPU commission. That is why we put that language into that job description. It was directly from Flaherty and Hood that they should be supervised, directly supervised by the city administrator.
Okay, so that if there's a personnel issue, the city administrator would take care of it. That's my understanding. Okay, thank you.
And you, can I ask that?
Yeah.
And you're okay with that statement?
No,
No, you're not.
no, because according to the charter, that's, the change is that the city administrator was the head of personnel issues. And the charter, in chapter 6, perfectly states that the BPU commission is in charge of operations. Now, if we have if you're gonna do what you're doing, there's no reason for us to have a BPU commission. Because if city administrator doesn't agree with what we're directing Todd to do, who is he supposed to listen to? Who's his boss then?
The city council.
Patrick wants something to do, then we don't like those rates, we want you to do this instead. Who's he supposed to listen to?
Section 4 says the city council shall employ all necessary help for the commission to properly perform its duties.
To help
And
us
approve
do our
all
job.
terms and conditions of employment. It says it in the charter, Mark. We understand you're not happy. We understand you don't want the change. You're not presenting anything new as of right now.
Wow.
Right. Then I go back to, do we have to make this decision tonight? Because we specifically have commission members that are not happy. And we've got charter discussion, we've got Flaherty and Hood discussion. It just seems like it's unbalanced.
So if we push this off 2 weeks, I mean, Todd's still not gonna like it, therefore Mark is not going to like it if it's a change.
But even if your statement of pushing it out 2 weeks, what kind of plan are we gonna do to try to make things?
I don't know what would change 2 weeks from now.
Right.
Chris?
Really what happens is we have a tentative start date of April 15th, saying that if we start to do the job advertisement on January 8th, if you push that out 2 weeks, this person probably will not have much time to work with Todd.
I just wanna make sure we do it right and see if we can come to some kind of a compromise, something, and I don't know what that would be.
And what I'm hearing is that the commissioners would like to have that meeting on the 22nd before any decision is made on this, so that they have full input. So you're really pushing it out a month.
So is there any chance you could call a special commission meeting? I mean, we've done that for council many times.
I don't see any reason why not. I think there does need to be clarification. I think when we.
I mean, I don't know if that would help at all anyways,
Or you're saying a joint meeting of city council, a special meeting for BPU and city council on next Monday night
I would be fine with that.
to discuss this issue of the title of the.
I didn't know if it was gonna be council and commission.
Well, I think
just the
they want to
commission.
have the commission's input because it's, maybe Gabe is the only one that feels that way. Maybe the other 4 upstairs feel that, the same way Gabe does, I don't know. So,
Well, maybe we just move this upstairs, leave it like it is, see what the other council members wanna do.
Bring no recommendation upstairs?
well, I'm hearing a recommendation for a special meeting on this, a week from today, or a week from Monday, I apologize, so,
A week from yesterday?
yeah, whatever that
So
was.
January 8th.
Thank you.
And just to clarify, I'm okay with keeping the title the way it is, that's what I was asked.
Yep.
But in terms of supervision, I think it should be the city administrator. In terms of the personnel and the actual responsibilities of the rate setting and that type of thing should be the
That's
commission.
operations.
Correct.
And which
So-
part of operations should
That's where we have to
Patrick
get clear.
be in charge of?
That's where we should get
That was the
clear.
importance of why we needed the
Mhm.
work group, so that was clear. And it isn't just for the personnel who's sitting here today, it's for future commissions, future council, to understand, because there is a gray area there. There's, if you interpret it one way, they interpret it another way, commission, so that it's gray. We need to clarify for.
Well, that's why I want to get it
It is a
right.
gray area and it does need to be clarified, because we've encountered the same
Correct.
situation over in the Parks Department,
Yes.
because they employed, now the city also employs all park workers, so who does Jesse answer to on park work? City administrator or the park board? It's the city administrator's correct answer, but the park board has had problems with that too.
So Tad was the one who asked for a joint work group.
Because he didn't go to any of the other
those
joint
things.
meetings.
What's that? What's that?
It's because he didn't attend any of the other joint meetings about it.
So what, having a meeting next Monday, if in fact we do, is gonna change what?
Well, you're gonna be just discussing the charter change.
Yeah.
The, might as well have everything on the 22nd.
move the 22nd
Move it up to
Clarification of
the,
supervision, personnel, duties.
But we'll
of-
still have the meeting on the 22nd and talk about,
no, I think that'll be all, we'll try to get everything done
This is
that
in
night.
exchange of,
oh, okay.
in lieu of.
Just move it up.
Yep,
As long as we didn't adjourn to it, so as long as we do everything.
you can do a
properly.
special notice tomorrow,
Okay, all right.
as long as it's 3 days, and the newspaper's here, so we're.
That seems reasonable to me.
Seems reasonable.
Good idea, chief.
Okay, so then I think that just leaves those remaining 4 items all for next week.
I think so.
Okay,
What time? 6?
That, well, if you make that motion, that's what it'll be.
I make a motion, we have the meeting next Monday at 6.
Second.
motion is second to move the January 22nd meeting
Correct.
to January 8th at 6 o'clock at City Hall.
In council chambers?
Council chambers.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, council chambers. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, that motion carries. All right, we still got a couple more items to wrap up here. The LMCIT liability coverage waiver form, Connie.
This is an annual election. We always elect does not waive. This is the recommendation of our local insurance agent, is what we've done in the past. Therefore, the recommended action would be to approve and submit the liability coverage form with it does not waive the monetary limits on the municipal tort liability established by municipal statute.
I so move.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And last up, consider request to transfer WAC cash balance to BPU.
So the utility commission submitted a letter requesting the city transfer the WAC funds to BPU. There's about $125,000 in some sense, so we would transfer $125,000. It makes sense that since BPU does the water, to transfer the WAC funds to BPU on an annual basis. There's a little over $1.2 million in the sanitary accessibility charge fund. However, since the city does the collection, BPU does the treatment, the allocation of those funds is yet to be determined. But the recommended motion would be to transfer the $125,000 of the current funds in the WAC fund to BPU by February 1st, and further to authorize staff to annually transfer the balance of the WAC fund to BPU by January 1st of each year.
Nice one.
Second.
So I don't support this motion. I support the transfer of the $125,000 to go towards this water project they have in. But this is a city fee, this is a building department fee. I don't think it should just be transferred annually. I think it should be transferred like we transferred $1 million for the water tower. It should be transferred project-based for projects that the city supports. Like, they can extend water all over the place or electricity without the city council support. So I think this money should, this little bit of money should at least be used for projects the city council supports. But I do support the big project that we got bonding money for this year, so. I support this one transfer, I don't support an annual transfer, I think it should be project-based.
So the motion is to transfer and to do the annual, correct? Is that
That
the
was-
motion?
That was
This is
the
the
motion.
motion.
So, and if you guys are fine keeping it that way, I can just vote no, and that's
Okay.
it's no hair on me. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, aye. That motion carries. We're adjourned at 7:24, we've got 6 minutes to go upstairs.
Okay, I'll